Welcome to this short training video from GCVS. We hope it will help community groups and other voluntary organisations in Glasgow with their application for grant funding. This recording includes an overview of grant funding in Scotland today, explains how to find grant makers, and includes some tips about good application technique and effective fundraising communications. But this is only a brief introduction to the topic. If you need more information, please visit our website at gcvs.org.uk to find more resources, training and support. We have included some links in the descriptive text below. So let's begin by looking at the context of grant funding in Scotland today. Many grant makers experience overwhelming demand. They receive a huge number of applications, and the total amount requested is often very much greater than the amount of money they have available to distribute. So it's impossible for them to support every request. With competition for grant funding so high, please manage your expectations carefully. Also, anticipate rejection as normal. Your application is unlikely to be successful. In years gone by, when we applied for grants, we used to anticipate success, but things are very different now, and we should anticipate rejection as a normal response. High dependency on grant funding alone carries a very high risk for your organisation. If you've received funding before, please don't assume the same grant maker will be able to repeat their support again for the same work. Also, many grants today are awarded as restricted income. This means grants can only be used for a particular purpose during a limited time frame. And some grant makers ask for any unused funds to be returned. Grants are usually awarded with terms and conditions attached that require lots of time, effort and resources to manage well. And smaller organisations can find it challenging to manage a portfolio of several restricted grants. Consider a better use of your time and resources might be to attract more sustainable unrestricted income instead. This can be secured through other fundraising methods, such as nurturing individual donations, promoting active fundraising in your community, inviting corporate partnerships, or promoting social enterprise trading as part of a diverse fundraising plan. It's vital to invest in developing other income streams. Having said all that, grant funding remains an important source of income for many voluntary organisations. So if you do decide to go ahead and apply for a grant, here are a few tips to improve your chance of success. The heart of good fundraising is not really about money. It's mostly about connecting people to your good cause, telling them about the positive difference their support makes, and nurturing healthy long-term relationships with your supporters. So when approaching a grant maker, can you explain what you're fundraising for? What's your good cause? This might seem obvious to you, but with such overwhelming competition for grants, it's important to present a clear case for support. For grant applications, an effective case for support is a compelling statement that answers three key questions. Why is your work needed? What activities will you do to address that need? And most importantly, what difference will all your activities make for your cause? A strong case for support statement can be very effective to use in the summary section of an application form, or as the first paragraph in an appeal letter. These are often the most important parts of your application, and success might depend on these sections alone. Spend time to develop your case for support statement and aim to make it dynamic and compelling. Most of all, for grant applications, you must show how your work could help the grant maker to achieve their own purpose and priorities. Most grant makers are unable to respond to general appeals or speculative bids. Avoid approaching grant makers with a shopping list of your costs or asking them for a general donation for your organization. Your application should not be about you. Instead, ask them to support the difference your organization exists to make. Explain your aims and objectives very clearly. For example, you might show their support would improve people's lives, or bring your community together, or even address climate change. If you've been operating for some time, include evidence that proves the difference you make for your cause. You'll have a better chance of success if the difference your organization exists to make has a clear fit with the difference the grant maker wants to make with their money. So in other words, when considering a grant opportunity, ask yourself two questions. Question 1, what difference does this grant maker want to make? And question 2, how does this fit with our cause and mission? It's important not to compromise your cause or try to change it to fit the grant opportunity. If your work does not fit well with the grant maker's guidelines, then don't apply. So how do you find the right grant opportunity? Success depends on good research. So let's consider some ways to do this. There are many thousands of grant makers in the UK, and each one is very different. They all have their own history, funding priorities, and motivation for giving. We're going to consider 3 of the main types of grant maker here, but there are many more. National Lottery Good Causes are the biggest funders of the voluntary sector in Scotland by far. They include the National Lottery Community Fund and Awards for All Scotland, but there are many others. So visit their websites to find clear guidance and resources. Charitable trusts and foundations are often registered charities in their own right and can only support a limited range of purposes. Some examples are the Robertson Trust, the Bank of Scotland Foundation, or the Souter Charitable Trust. Grants are also available from public sector funders, such as the Scottish Government and local authorities. For example, Glasgow City Council provide area partnership grants. There are many other types of grant makers. A good place to find grant opportunities is the GCVS grant search system, open for community. This is available free for those voluntary organisations working within the Glasgow City local authority area that have an annual income less than £1 million. You can subscribe through the GCVS website. Also keep an eye on our regular GCVS bulletin, which always includes funding news and updates for groups in Glasgow. We also publish a monthly directory of environmental grants. Another great resource to explore is SCVO's Funding Scotland service. So once you've found a potential grant opportunity, here are a few things to consider before you apply. It's important to read through every word of the grant maker's guidelines. Time invested in reading through their guidelines will be well spent. Also, try to find out all you can about the grant maker, their motivation for giving, and discover where their money comes from. You can find information on the actual giving history of most major grant makers by visiting the 360 Giving website. Does the purpose and priority of the funding opportunity have a strong match with your work? Remember, if your work doesn't match well, then don't apply. Check that your type of organization is eligible to apply. And note any application deadline dates and send your application in good time beforehand. Bear in mind that some grant makers close their offer early, so if you leave it to the last minute, you might be disappointed. Please be aware that all fundraising activity is regulated, and this includes grant applications. Follow the code of fundraising practice to make sure all your fundraising is legal, open, honest, and respectful. Before you apply, it's a good idea to have some key documents about your organization ready. Many grant makers will ask you to provide these, so check their guidelines and make sure you have all documents to hand before you start. They often ask for your written governing document. This should include your aims and objectives and explain how your organization is run. Most grant makers will expect to see evidence of democratic control, or in other words, that your organization is managed by a team of unrelated people who represent the community or cause they serve. Grant makers are also likely to ask for financial information, such as your annual account statement or recent financial management records. And many will ask to see a bank statement to make sure you have an existing bank account in the same name as your organization. If you are applying for a registered charity, check that your public record on Oscar is up to date. And if you have a website or social media sites, make sure they reflect your work and show recent activity. Here are a few tips about good application technique. Try to refer to the grant maker's funding priorities throughout your application. If you need to complete an application form, consider the focus of each question. Try to answer directly and clearly. The text in your application must be crafted individually, so avoid using generic text that's copied from elsewhere or text that's generated only by artificial intelligence. Try to explain the context of your work. If you work alongside other organizations, remember to name your main partners. It's good to describe the benefits of your collaboration and the unique contribution your organization makes. Your budget should include all the costs of delivering your project. This is known as full cost recovery, and we have included a link to guidance about this in the description below. The numbers and items in your budget should complement your descriptive text. Before you submit your application, it's always a good idea to do a final check to make sure the numbers add up. Application forms often contain similar or common questions, and we've included a few here. For example, how do you know there's a clear need for your work? It's important to include unique or first-hand information the grant maker can't find anywhere else. What do you know from your organization's experience and knowledge? Grant makers might ask whether local people are involved in the design or development of your work. How do your service users or beneficiaries play an active role in leading and managing your work? Often grant makers can only support a certain percentage of your budget. So if you've already secured any other funding or allocated any funds from your reserves, then say so. If you've applied elsewhere for the same work, you might be asked to name the other prospective funders and the amounts you've asked for. Describe the types of monitoring and evaluation tools you use and include evidence that proves the impact of your work. And they might ask, what will you do when grant funding ends? It's a good idea to outline your plans to promote sustainability by developing other income streams. Also, more grant makers ask applicants to explain how they promote environmental sustainability. So when you've completed your final draft, it's a good idea to ask an independent person to read it through before submitting it. And after you send your application, you might need to wait up to 6 months or more to hear the outcome. So plan your application strategy well ahead and manage your expectations carefully. Decide what would you do if your application is not successful. Again, anticipate rejection as a normal response. So to summarize very briefly, when applying for grants, it's important to have your case for support statement ready, together with evidence that proves the difference your activities make for your good cause. Spend time to research grant opportunities. Read their guidelines very carefully and make sure your organisation is eligible to apply. Have all the supporting documents for your organisation ready before you start writing. Every application you write should be unique. This can take a lot of time and skill to do well. And most importantly, for the best chance of success, you must show how your work has a strong match with the grant maker's priorities. If you're a voluntary group working in Glasgow City local authority area and you're looking for more support, then register for our funded support service to access our free training sessions, advice surgeries, and resources such as our powerful grant search system. Also watch our regular newsletters for funding news and updates, and you'll find full information from the GCVS website. If this video has helped you, please click the like button and give a comment. To find information about other support and services available from GCVS, please visit our website gcvs.org.uk. In the meantime, we wish you every success with your fundraising, and please let us know how you get on. Thanks for watching.